This is the April 9th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We are meeting via Zoom webinar. All attendees and participants are forewarned that their image or other information may be recorded for the record. I'll introduce, even though there's no one to introduce them to, the members that are with us. We have Jim Royer.
Here.
And we have Susanna Roberts. And we have Jenny Bartlett.
Evening.
And we have Pat.
Hello.
Okay, and I'm Lynn Ryan, and we have Leanne Leahy, who is the one who really runs this operation.
I don't know if I'd say that.
Okay, do we have any minutes to be approved?
Yes, the minutes of March 12th.
Would someone care to make a motion?
I'll move that we accept the minutes as circulated for March 12th hearing.
All right, second.
Okay, sorry.
You can do the next one.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the March 12th meeting? If not, I'll do a roll call vote. Jim,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Susanna,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. I think that's all the minutes we have, right?
Correct.
Any warrants, Jenny?
Nothing yet that I've seen.
Okay, don't forget to turn in yours, Susanna, before the end of the fiscal year.
I did it yesterday.
Yeah,
No.
well, I have to get it printed and Denny, I will leave it for you. It will need your signature.
Did you hear that, Denny?
No.
Sue needs reimbursement on something, so I will get that to you. I'll leave it in the basket in the usual spot in town offices for you to sign on Monday.
Okay.
That's for the program she attended and is gonna report on tonight. We have, I think that's the only warrant then. Communications. I just want to say that I expect we will have a hearing next month. It'll be for 136 Central Street. Are you in a butter, Susanna?
I haven't been notified, so
Well, you wouldn't have been yet. They put their papers in, and when I looked at them, they had, well, for example, they answered the question about, do you have any outstanding obligation to the town of Berlin, monetary? And they said yes. So I wrote back to them and said, you have either got to explain what that means or you've got to change it. They didn't write down what kind of a permit or whatever they were asking for. And there was very little information on their site plan, and I pointed that out and pointed them to the where they can get the information they need. They answered, I think the wife answered, did she, Leanne?
I don't know. I didn't see that. It might have been after I left. And Sue is not on the abutter list, so.
Okay. You know where that is, Sue, right?
trying to think, it's on my side, so.
That's the new house up on the hill.
Oh,
it
so
has
is
the-
it Jerry?
Bernie?
Yeah,
Very burn, yeah.
Okay. What else was there?
I am in a butter of the orchard.
Yeah, well, the butter list that he provided with his application doesn't have your name or address on it.
Is the house property separate from the orchard property?
No. Well, no, oh, maybe, yes, yes. The house is 136, the orchard is its separate property.
Okay, because the orchard wraps around back and abuts up in
Yeah.
the woods.
It is two separate properties.
Yeah.
I think we go by the abutter list anyway, Susanna, so I think you're free and clear. I think it's reasonable to assume that you're not considered an abutter.
Okay.
DOT, I think I might have mentioned this before, but in case I didn't, I think Denny set me straight. If you remember when we were working on that house that was on the corner of the 495 ramp and Central Street, DOT stepped in and wanted, anytime there was a state highway type thing. Well, Denny and I, in a conversation, he had said, well, they don't plow, they just plow the point right at the intersection there. So that in order to, the reason that that property was considered under DOT is because of the ramp, it abuts the ramp. So it would be properties that would abut 290 or 495, not 62. So that's a sigh of relief that DOT isn't gonna get involved with every subdivision. Um,
Now, how, are you saying this in reference to what was going on at the planning board last night? There's,
no,
okay,
no, I'm talking about, if you remember, the reason that business does not exit onto Route 62. We didn't want it, but it was DOT that stepped in and said, no, we won't allow it. Because that's abuts state land.
okay, so why is it an issue now? I missed that.
Well, DOT told us that anytime property abuts a state road and it's either changing the use or going into use, being used for the first time, that they need to be notified. And historically, like Route 62, going through the center of Berlin, I mean, that would be a lot of people that would need to be notified. But Route 62 is a numbered route. It's not a state road, right, Denny?
Correct.
I think I missed part of the conversation. Was that earlier too? Is this applying to the permit?
Well, I think the connecting the dots here is, this discussion came up because it's 136 Central Street, which is, Central Street is Route 62.
And there's something that's going in, I missed, is that what the permit's for?
The
Yes.
permit
That's
is
what we're looking at?
gonna be a home-based contracting business, which is going on there now anyway, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Okay,
And there's gonna be like a barn put up. A 40 by 80 barn.
Yeah, I believe they're tearing down the house and putting up a barn. The old house.
Marvel House.
Okay, I think that's all I had. Did anybody else have anything?
I sent out today a public hearing notice from the planning board about, they're having a hearing on April 22nd at 8 PM to propose amendments to the bylaws relating to flood plan and the ADUs.
Mm.
So I sent that around to everybody to read if you're interested in attending.
Is it gonna be Zoom?
Yes,
I just lost you. Hold on a second. There you are. I got you back.
Is
yes,
it,
it is via Zoom.
is it Zoom only or Zoom and in person?
Let me-
It just says Zoom on their notice.
Okay,
Yep, to Zoom.
I think they do everything by Zoom.
they
Yeah.
do. There was just, I didn't know if the notice went out before or after we got the
Yeah.
extension on the Zoom.
After Tim came in to clarify with me and made sure that he had the correct Zoom link, because initially they meet twice a month. So there's one Zoom link if it's the second Tuesday and the other Zoom link if it's the fourth Tuesday. And he just thought it was the same Zoom link anytime they had a meeting. So he came in to clarify, make sure he had the right link. And that the fact that they could do it via Zoom.
So
The-
anyone else who didn't hear that, they have extended it for, I believe, 2 years until
2 years,
2027.
Yep.
yep, the end of June 2027.
I think we really need to get the legislature to just permanent. I mean, this is the third time they've extended it. And it just, it's 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. And I think by now, any of the issues would have shown up. I mean, if you've been doing it for what, 9 years, no, 6 years now.
But they did say they're gonna try to make it permanent.
Yeah, and instead they extended it.
Mhm.
So maybe we can get them to make it permanent the next go round. Okay, anybody else have any other communications they'd like to share?
Do you
If
wanna-
not, I know Susanna has been spending some time with the planning board and agreed to make a report on what they're proposing for town meeting. So Susanna, you have the floor if you would, please.
All right, I listened in on their meeting last night, and just to update you guys, there were some informal talks about another hotel down at the Rotary at River Bridge. It sounded like it was an extended stay. I believe what he said was 116 keys, which I think means rooms, but because it's extended stay, they might be not just rooms. What else were they talking about? There was talk of a land swap, and I think they said a 6-house subdivision between the Berlin Vet and the Blue House. before you get to Tarbes. I guess we can't call it Tarbes anymore. So that would be, you might be in a butter for that, Lynn, just so you know.
Yeah, the meeting before that I had attended, and I know Tim raised the question that if they reduce the frontage of that property, they have to increase the volume so that they'd have to give them land in back. So that
Right.
sounds like what they're looking to do.
Yep. Yeah, and then I believe that's no, the hardships had to do with what is called the PADU, which is the protected ADU by right, and how hardship worked with that. It didn't have to do with the subdivision. Sorry. I was listening in and out because I was also trying to cook dinner at the same time. But so that was last night, and then they went over a little bit more of just clarifying the wording for the new bylaw for the protected ADU. And I had given my 2 cents via email to Jay of just making sure it covered pre-existing, and also they were concerned about mobile homes, and so I said, I'm 99% sure the bylaw says you have to comply with the current building code, and the current building code says it has to be on a foundation. So that takes care of that, and I believe they added that in to the wording. So that was that. And
Did
then,
they talk about the 900,
well,
the
it's,
900 square foot, you know, that we have a couple that are more than that?
yes, that was I brought it up 2 weeks ago that we need to address what happens with a pre-existing that's over 900 square feet. Does it become a protected ADU, or does it still fall under the special permit? And so they added wording that said that it falls under the special permit. So I don't know, if you hang on a second, I might have the zoning. Oh, I have the older one. Did you not get a copy of the revised bylaw that they're proposing?
I don't believe I did. Did anyone else?
No,
Okay,
their meeting minute notice there says that the drafted version is supposed to be on the My Town meeting website, but it's not there. So I'm not sure if they just haven't gotten to posting it yet or what, but
okay.
they tend to be a little slow posting things. Like there's no minutes up there for their last 3 or 4 meetings either. So
All right, if you bear with me a second, I will see if I can find the wording here. I might have the older version. But under it's the modification was under section 504 dimensional requirements, where item A says gross floor area shall not exceed the lesser of 900 square feet or 50% of the primary dwelling gross floor area. And that's when I brought up that they need to cover what happens when it's pre-existing and over 900 square feet. Whether they wanted the pre-existing ones that were larger than that to become an ADU by right, or if they wanted to keep it under our special permit. So they did add language to that effect. That if it was over the 900 square feet and existed before this went into effect, it was still required a special permit.
Be interesting to see what the AG does with that.
Why,
Well, because everything, I think, I had a discussion with Rich. I don't know, Rich isn't on here, is he?
He is not.
no,
And he was saying that their organization was saying that those are pre-existing and they're treated as pre-existing non-conforming.
well,
And they were legitimized and no longer needed a special permit.
well, we can write, I mean, I can go through this in my note, but
If you don't mind me interrupting, I did forward a draft of that warrant article to everybody. Sue sent it to me and I forwarded it to everybody back on March 17th. So
Yeah, I have it.
If you want
Thank
to
you.
check your email. But
Thank you.
that's the date, so if you want to try to find it.
I was just looking at that one, but I thought I didn't have the updated.
I don't know if
hang on.
that's the updated one, but that's one of 5 pages.
Oh,
warrant
yes, yeah, okay, that has it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I found, thank you.
you're welcome.
The wording that they added and the bylaw takes precedence over anything,
Right,
as long as
right.
it's not more restrictive, the bylaw that we write is what the town is gonna go by, not what an organization is saying. I think if it was vague, they could make that determination. But the new wording says, any larger, new or pre-existing ADU must conform to bylaw sections 510, in-law apartments, or 520 accessory apartments.
Okay, good.
So that should take out any vagueness on
Um,
what happens.
I think one thing we're gonna get snagged in here is that, there's an in-between period here. We haven't passed the new bylaw yet. And I believe Rich is already telling people that they don't need to worry about it because they had a previous, that Autumn Ridge property in particular, I believe was sold, which means the old special permit they had was
Expired.
expired as soon as it's sold.
Mhm.
So they don't have a permit as far as I believe. The old permit expired, but I believe Rich told them that they were fine the way it is and just go along with life.
Yes.
He did, yeah.
Yep. And I asked that specific question when I was at the workshop and they said, talk to your town council. So
Yeah, and Rich also says they're counting basements. So, let's say you've got a ranch house and you've got a complete basement. Now, I don't think it has to be finished, it just has to be a basement, would be considered in the square footage. So some of the guidance that they're giving the building commissioners seems to be a little different than the way I would interpret it. But of course, I'm not a legal mind.
yeah, well, square footage is not defined in the new bylaws, so it's gonna be by whatever we have in our definitions.
And I think that's one of the things they may need to address, Suzanne, is does it include basements? Because in the past, we never have, because the assessors do not include basements.
So I guess the question is, what happens, because it would never come to us if the zoning enforcement officer thinks that it's by right and it's fine. We'll never see it. It'll never come to us for a decision.
Well, I would think if it's in the bylaw, he would have to either challenge us, not us, but challenge the bylaw. But he'd have to go along with it until it was challenged. Like you said, it overrides anything else.
Yeah, but the problem arises if he thinks it doesn't and it's fine and he issues a letter that says, no, you're fine, go ahead. But it's actually it's not in compliance with our bylaw. I don't know how that would be handled. I think that would also be town council. And I'm sorry if the noise in the background is loud. I don't know if you guys can hear it.
No,
Okay.
I can't.
I have a cat that's playing with a paper bag.
Okay.
I do have a different question for you on this, Sue, if you. In any of this, is there any mention about whether these ADUs that are going to be built will be allowed to be used for short-term rentals? Like
They-
Airbnb?
No, I believe that's in the bylaw that they have to put it in there, but it is excluding short-term rentals.
Okay,
So it seems like there's a 30-day minimum, which is similar to the rest of our bylaws.
okay, that makes sense.
That was part of the thing. So, do you want me to just quickly go over my notes from the workshop, or did you guys all
That
read?
would be great. I think either renewal or some of us may not have heard, some of us may have heard, but I think it would be worthwhile.
Okay, so I know I sent it to you guys. And the reason I say that is because I have my handwritten one, but you guys but I should probably read the draft notes. Here we go. I'm gonna read what I typed, so it's not conflicting. Okay. All right, so in it, I gave you 3 links. 2 of the links go to slideshow presentations. One was the one that I attended, And the other one was a presentation held on March 11. And you can actually see that was recorded, so you can actually watch their presentation, which looks fairly different from what, I mean, just looking at the slides, it looks fairly different from what I got when I was there. It was put on by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. If you go to the website mass.gov/ADU, there's a lot of guidance and tools for town boards regarding the new law, such as checklists, recorded webinars, model zoning, and do's and don'ts. So some of the do's and don'ts they were saying is don't be vague. So if you don't want to say the ADU has to blend in with the existing streetscape, you want to actually say you have to have a pitched roof, you know, if that's what your intent is. Sections 7 and 8 of the Affordable Housing Act are the sections that really affect what we do. It has the guidance and tools for town boards regarding the new law, such as checklists, recorded, that's the wrong line. It's tiny, it's on my screen, I'm trying to read it. ADUs that comply with the Affordable Housing Act are part of the protected use as outlined in Section 3. And the type of occupant may not be restricted, which means we can no longer say in-law or caretaker or anything. That's for the protected ones. That's for the small under 900 square feet ones. Each municipality must keep a record of the number of ADUs and make sure the data is collected and available in a record system. It will need to be accessible by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So I know I emailed Rich about that, and he said, not a problem. They're already doing that. So taken care of. There's only one protected use ADU per lot. If they want a second one, it's a special permit, just like our other ones. And this is more important on, say, Martha's Vineyard, where they have sort of compounds, which is, you know, the main house and a guest house. The whole lot can only have one protected use ADU. It's not one per the main house, one per the guest house. So if you want to use the house on Autumn Ridge as an example, it's not that the main house can have its own protected ADU and the pre-existing ADU can have its own ADU. That doesn't work. You can only have one. You can have more than one, but you have to get a special permit in our town because planning board wrote it that way. Other towns are writing it that they can have more than one, but we're not, just to be clear. The site plan review cannot require more information than as required for a single family dwelling. So unless there's an issue, say of Conservation Commission, you can't ask for more than you would if they were building a house. Gross floor area calculations for the ADU bylaw compliance must match existing bylaw gross floor area calculations for single family homes. So that means that whatever our bylaw says, how we calculate square footage in our main bylaw is also how we calculate square footage for the protected use ADU. Does that make sense, Lynn? Because that's what you're asking.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah, I think that's something that we need to ask Rich about, because I think his understanding is from his organization that it includes basements. But if in fact, when we calculate in our bylaw square living space, we do not include the basements, then I would say we wouldn't be doing it for the ADUs either. Wouldn't you, Susanna?
I would, but at this point, I really feel like whoever is doing the seminars for the building inspectors are not the same people doing the seminars for the zoning boards.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to address that. So, and I know that planning board was going to someone else entirely for their seminars.
But
CM,
we could be creating a monster.
I know, so I don't know how we all get on the same page with this.
Yeah, and I also saw in the bylaw, in that 7 and 8 in the bylaw, it said you can make reasonable restrictions. Well, it doesn't say what reasonable restrictions are, but one of the things I was discussing with folks was, can you say it must look like a single family dwelling, which is what we've always said about any in-law or accessory apartment.
But you can't say it like that. You have to say it has to have a pitched roof and blah, 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 blah. It can't have a staircase that faces the street. The staircase must be at the back of the house, kind of thing. So you just have to do specifics. That was something they went over at the workshop. Which is actually a little further down. Understand what reasonable and unreasonable requirements are when drafting your bylaw. It is better to be specific and not subjective, like saying must blend with the neighborhood is subjective and open to interpretation, whereas must have a roof pitch between 712 and 1212 is specific. So and also, just so you know, the planning board is getting a bylaw out there and they fully expect that we're going to have to refine it over the years as we realize the parts that are missing. So this isn't a one and done kind of thing.
Sort of
And
like
then-
common driveway. We modified it as we went along.
All right. And to get back to pre-existing, if it's pre-existing and it's under 900 square feet, then you cannot continue to enforce the special permits. If it's under 900 square feet, it becomes by right. And then the last thing I have is that site plan review can include items such as screening, conservation commission, delineation, and septic. So other things that they talked about were that if you had pre-existing non-conforming principal dwelling in that it was too close to the setback line, the owner is allowed to continue that non-conformance, but can't make it worse. If they decide to that's if it's an attached ADU. If it's a detached ADU, then it has to comply with all your current setbacks. So that's it. That's all I got.
Well, thank you, Susanna.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions of Susanna? One of the things that I didn't mention earlier, is anybody planning, and I don't know why they would, to go to the, what is it, CR,
The dinner?
the I'm sorry,
Are you asking about the dinner?
yeah,
I am not planning on going.
yeah, because Berlin's not getting, recognized for anything this year, so I don't know why we would go, but maybe, someone would have an interest. Okay,
So, oh, there's on my handwritten notes, just so you know, the state offers technical assistance writing the bylaw, which I forward that information to the planning board. The things that are not addressed by this Affordable Housing Act at all yet, and they are working on it, is making ADUs that are in a homeowners association and condoizing ADUs. So at some point in the future, they may allow a protected ADU to be a condo. Oh, and
I did notice that they're looking at, I guess the reason they wanted Rich to be able to track the numbers of these ADUs is because they count towards our 10% for low-income housing.
no, they don't.
I thought that was part of the things, I thought somewhere that they counted as a denominator.
Yes, they do count as a denominator, which counts against our 10%, unless they are Section 8 housing.
So it counts against the 10%.
Okay, yes. Yeah, what you said.
but
It's
just
just
think about it.
it's another thing that people are gonna be concerned about as far as, 40B coming up again with,
Yeah, I know that I brought this up, that I said, in small towns, this is really going to impact our 10% affordable housing stock.
See, and I think it's so unfair that, you take a place like Berlin, that low and moderate income housing is most effective when you're close to public transportation, a large city. I mean, these folks, the low and moderate income housing, one of the problems they have is not being able to find folks to fill it after they build it.
I don't, is there a way to even have one of these ADUs count as a low-income unit?
You have to,
Rented.
You have to
rent it
have
to a
it,
section 8.
yeah. Which now I hear is getting overhauled. The other thing too is anyone coming in to ask about putting in one of these ADUs by right. They really need to understand about landlord tenant laws in Massachusetts before they want to get into being a landlord. I
But
don't
it
know.
does make it easier for people to build an in-law apartment. If that's what you want. You can build the apartment, but you don't have to rent it.
Yeah, you can still build it and
Cap it for family.
yes. But if you decide you're gonna rent it out, then you need to understand, you need to watch Pacific Heights is what you need to do. Do you remember that movie?
Well, I just, hear folks complain about trying to get rid of tenants and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think people that are renting for the first time understand that.
Especially in
They
their
don't-
backyard. Yeah.
They don't know how to vet people in order, and how can I say no to someone
Mhm.
if they come ready, willing, and able? And I know they're a level 3 sex offender and there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood, I mean, how do I say no to someone without going to jail? Okay, anything else in town? I was glad to see the Christensen house being built again.
Almost done.
Yep.
Mm.
It looks a little different.
Yeah, it's a ranch, yeah,
Yeah.
brand new ranch.
Yes.
Um, well, maybe what we ought to do is talk about availability for next month. It looks like I strongly expect that we will have a hearing. So is everybody that's on with us tonight, will they be available for the 14th of May?
As of right now, I'm available.
But
Okay, excellent. All right, if what we're just chattering about is what's going on in the town, maybe it's time to close the meeting. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a
Seconded,
second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Okay, you said aye before I even asked. Pat said aye.
Aye.
Denny
I
and Susanna,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. We are adjourned. See you next month.